Hmm, come on, timer. There it is. I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Saints, joined by Lisa Mansfield. We're here to talk about Ben Cross's performance as Barnabas Collins in the 1991 Dark Shadows revival, or as I like to call it, DS revival. So, when did you first see the 1991 revival, Lisa?
I was in high school in 1991, and I had never even heard of Dark Shadows before then, believe it or not. Um, my mom was a huge fan, and we had both seen it. It was coming on television. I remember her being really excited. She was like really, really, really excited. And so we both watched it and absolutely loved it. And then a couple years later, I started watching the original series on the old Sci-Fi Channel.
Cool.
So yeah, I if it hadn't been for Ben Cross and the revival series, I would not even be watching Dark Shadows. To be honest, I that introduced me to the wonderful world of Dark Shadows. Yeah, yeah,
Cool, cool.
yeah.
I've heard some people in groups say they've gotten started at the revival, that the revival did
Oh,
introduce
cool,
them
cool.
to like make them explore dark shows. I think you'll see that with franchises, Shadows
Yeah,
and others, where
yeah.
not everybody watched the original first. They've either watched
No.
the revival or they've watched the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Famously, Johnny Depp's 2012 movie
Oh
got
yeah,
got
yeah,
people to look up to the
yeah.
old series in a revival. But
Mm-hmm.
so this Dark Shadows is a whole new cast. You have Joanne
Yeah.
Coins as Victoria Winters /
Oh, I love
Josette
her.
Dupree.
Love
You
her.
have
Yeah.
Ben Cross, who we're going to talk about as
Yeah.
Barnabas Collins, Jim Fay as Willie Loomis.
Oh God. Yeah.
It was really interesting.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. He's a hoot. He's a hoot
And
as Willie.
so, you've seen Jonathan Frid's performance as
Oh
Barnabas,
yeah.
and you've
Yeah.
seen Ben Cross.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? But
Oh my
like,
God.
what's the biggest difference do you feel between the two?
I think with both the revival series and original series, you have to treat them as separate entities
Yeah,
because the production quality is different, obviously, because you have 1966 versus 1991.
yeah.
And I think the big difference between both Barnabases is maybe I've heard people say it, oh, the revival series is like a romance novel. Oh, not really. But I think it's just two different actors and two different interpretations. Ben Cross's Barnabas, and I remember I was 16 years old when I started watching it. I was like, oh my God, just like the fangs and the red eyes. And he's more what we now would look at like a typical vampire that you see on, you know, um, any vampire show out there, like Forever Night or even the Vampire Diaries. They made him like there was vampire Barnabas and regular Barnabas, as I like to say. With Ben Cross, his vampire self was very just it was a monster. And with Jonathan Fripp, they just used all makeup and shadow and lighting, especially during the black and white episodes. But they drew a clear line, with Ben Cross's Barnabas that this was like a Hammer horror monster. But he played it so well. I always say with his Barnabas and with Jonathan Fritz Barnabas, he could move around because he didn't look like a typical vampire. But in the revival series, when you knew that Barnabas was mad and then he was ready to like bite someone, like you knew because the fangs came out. Oh my God, yeah. But I love the revival series because it just reminds me of it's like almost an extension of House of Dark Shadows.
Mhm.
sort of on a bigger scale. But I just, again with Ben Cross, I don't know. He seemed, his Barnabas seemed a little bit more. I've heard people say a little bit more suave, a little bit more like again like a romance novel. But I mean, there were really some really good moments that you saw his humanity. Even with Jonathan Frid on the original series, like after the whole 1795 storyline, and maybe around 1968, 1969, some of his humanity was coming out to the surface. And with Ben Cross, when his Barnabas was being cured, he was really nice to Willie. I noticed that too. Yeah, but sometimes it is hard to compare
Yeah.
both performances because I love I love both the original series and the revival series, but with Ben Cross, he was an amazing actor.
I
You
think
know,
it.
he,
I think
yeah,
it's so hard. Like
yeah.
when people have asked me to compare between the two,
It,
and and I,
it's
and I
yeah,
think what's most difficult is what most people know is the original series lasted a lot longer.
yeah. Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know, the
yeah,
revival had one season, so
yeah.
I've always found it
Oh,
funny that
definitely.
you know you're asking me to judge a character on 13 episodes, but I think my
I know.
my best summation of uh, Ben Cross's Barnabas is he does not try to be Jonathan Frid's Barnabas,
No,
and
no.
I think that's the one thing I take away right away that
Yeah,
you know Ben Cross was an accomplished actor by this.
yeah, yeah.
He
Oh yeah,
also was a stage actor as well one
yeah,
time. So
yeah.
here's this actor who's a very well known, from
Mhm,
Chariots of Fire and stuff like that.
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
And he's he knows now he knows a couple things. One, he isn't playing the same Barnabas as what Fred did. I think he
no,
going in. But
no.
two, he also knows, well, I got pretty big shoes to fill. And I think
Yeah,
he filled them well. He knows
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have to try to be Jonathan because
Mhm,
this is I know it's revival, but reboot,
mhm.
is the
Yeah,
word most of
they're
us
called.
use. Right,
Yeah, everything's called a reboot nowadays.
right.
But yeah, but he respected Jonathan Frid's
Yeah.
performance. I know he didn't want to be, his version of Barnabas Collins. And again, oh, excuse me, my allergies are bothering me. Um, again, with both the original and revival series, is that, like I said, it's the revival series is like House of Dark Shadows. Even the pilot episode is basically House of Dark. It is literally House of Dark Shadows. Because I just watched it the other day. Give or take a take, just a few differences, but I know Dan Curtis, like House of Dark Shadows and the revival series, I think is what he wanted Dark Shadows to be, but he just couldn't do that back in 1966. So Ben Cross had a whole other thing, whole
I,
other production, to work with, you
right.
know.
I think if when you look at that, the whole thing is
Mm-hmm.
the original plan was to kill Barnabas off,
Yeah,
but
poor
you
Barnabas.
Jonathan Frid, acted it. The writers never knew where they in the original series. The
Yeah,
writers didn't know where they were taking Barnabas, and that.
no,
But Frid,
no,
I think, did such a great job in front of the camera, capitalizing on that. And
yeah,
I talked about this in my Barnabas Collins video question mark video, where when he talks, like, okay, by the time I saw Jonathan, comparing to sort of Jonathan and Ben's, by the time
mm-hmm.
I saw Dark Shadows, I had seen Bela
Yeah.
Lugosi, Christopher Lee.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
knew what a vampire was.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you see
Yeah.
Jonathan come out of his hand come out of the coffin, and you see him like knock on a door, and you
Mm.
hear his voice, and then you see his face. That's the vampire. You knew as an audience what he was, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that once I see him go into the old house later on, and he talks to Josette's portrait, to me, in my opinion, that's where
Hmm.
I saw him as sympathetic because before
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he's not saying I hate you. He's just
Mm.
calmly talking to this portrait, and in a way
Mm.
he's talking to Josette's ghost.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
very hard. He felt betrayed.
Yeah.
With Ben Cross's Barnabas, what I like here is where this really differs is you're right, it is sort of more like House of Dark Shadows, and
Yeah.
you do get the blood too,
Oh my
which is
God, I know, right?
cool.
Oh
What
God,
did
I
you
know.
what did you think of that?
Oh God, well, I just want to say, that I wanted to do this video because it's the anniversary of his passing. And I thought it'd be great, because I'm such a huge fan. Just from a perspective of a fan like me. But anyway, with House of Dark Shadows, no, the revival series is that again. I mean, there were vampires in. Obviously, there have been vampires in movies forever, starting with Nosferatu, the silent movie version of Dracula. But actually, Ben Cross did play a vampire before in the movie called Nightlife, from 1989. So, which it might be online somewhere or on a streaming service or maybe Tubi. Um, but yeah, I mean, the revival series. Oh my gosh, I mean, it was shown at nighttime, so that obviously made a difference. But it just everything. It was graphic on so many levels, but it's enjoyable. Every time I watch, I'm like, oh my goodness, I love it. But yeah, all the blood, when he's fighting all the women, and what makes it really, because in the original series, Barnabas was just a cousin. I mean, technically, Barnabas was just a very distant cousin, and he was. But in the revival series, Barnabas is a very distant great uncle. Because I remember, well, yeah, I mean, he and Jeremiah are brothers. Sarah and Daniel Collins are brother and sister. They're probably like fraternal twins.
Yeah.
So making Barnabas a very long distance uncle just again puts it on a whole other level. But the blood, the gore, and everything else, just again, it's like a Hammer horror movie. It really is. Like Christopher Lee and Dracula. He kind of does remind me, Ben Cross, of Christopher Lee's Dracula when you really think about it. Watching the revival series, it's awesome. What can I say?
I think I think the biggest difference too is Ben Cross, where he brings his own style and feel to this.
Mm-hmm.
At 1 minute, he's very laid back, cooler than the
Yeah,
side of the
yeah,
pillow, and
yeah.
then boom, he's murdering somebody, or he's ready to murder somebody. It's like
I know,
I'm
right?
like, man, dude, that was quick. What happened? You were to school a second ago. Why you like? He comes like even when
Yeah,
he talks, like he's talking real cool and calm, and then it's like, wait, are you gonna get out that chair and just like snap someone's like you're waiting for him to do it too? Like it's it's
I know.
refreshing. It was to me like it was refreshing to sort of
Yeah,
see that take
yeah.
because again, you know, I knew like going into the revival because a friend of mine had told me the revival's only one season,
Yeah,
and I
okay.
was like, oh wow. So when I'm watching this, I know I'm only going to get so many episodes, but the biggest difference too with the revival is
Mm-hmm.
Barnabas is introduced in the first episode.
Yeah, yeah, I
Like,
know.
and
Yeah.
because a friend of mine had asked me that too, that well, is Barnabas introduced right away in the original series? I said, no, that's in the revival. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, that's a different actor. It's Ben Cross who plays the
Mm-hmm.
revival. And it's a different version. But I said, it's enjoyable. I,
Yeah.
I, in my opinion, I think he does a superb job with this character.
Oh yeah. He deserves so much credit. So much credit for his portrayal of Barnabas Collins. Yeah, it's only 13 episodes. Unfortunately, I mean, there were there were other things going on at that time,
Right.
and it kept being preempted, and the episodes weren't being shown, and it just yeah. But he does a marvelous job. I mean, he really does, and you know, he was on Facebook, Ben Cross, and um, I always looked forward to seeing his postings on Facebook. And I have to say, he was so nice and so gracious with us fans because I mean, we, a couple of ladies would say, "Oh, you're so handsome," and this is, and but he was so nice. He didn't mind. He treated us fans really, really well, and he would comment back to us on Facebook, and that just bowled me over, to be honest, because I had I have never really met a lot of celebrities except ballet dancers, but when I'd see he would comment back, I'm like, oh my god, he commented back, that was so cool. And I think he brought a lot of that graciousness and that charm, and he was really, he portrayed Barnabas like Barnabas, was, an American aristocrat,
Yeah.
just charming old world, and he was kind of like that in person too, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah.
I always feel when somebody says describe your feelings of, I said he's like the James Bond Barnabas. He's very,
I guess.
he's very much,
Yes.
but more a little more hot tempered than Bond. He's
Yeah.
because he's ready to kill somebody. I love how
Exactly.
I love my favorite. One of my favorite scenes is when he shows the when he's biting someone in town and someone comes out and he shows the fans. I'm like, that.
Oh.
What's your
Yeah.
favorite scene with him as Barnabas?
Um. Too many to count. I do like. Um. Trying to think. I think it was the scene. The storyline with Julia. Um. When she's messing with his treatment, for his
Yeah,
vampirism, didn't work anyway. Um, and I think because I think Victoria was over there again. The episode when Victoria's at the old house and she has to stay over, and it's thunder and lightning, and she's in her nightgown, and Barnabas, obviously he's in love with her, and he starts to get those, like I want to bite you. And again, Julia messed with his medication or whatever treatment, and I think he had to go back to his crypt, and oh my god, just the fangs and the eyes and the growling. I'm like, oh, okay, this is not going to end well. I think that is one of my favorite scenes, and and 1795. Actually, it was supposed to be 1791, I think, in the revival series is when after Angelique curses Barnabas
yeah,
and he's dying and he's saying to Josette, I'll come back to you, you'll see me again. That was really intense. I mean, that the way they did the curse, the vampire curse and the
yeah.
revival series was just over the top. I mean, oh my god, every time I see that scene is like, wow. I mean, it was impressive. It was a really impressive because it takes forever, but that's a good thing. It's not just okay. I curse you, Barnabas, and bam, and you're a vampire or whatever. I mean that they draw that scene out, and yeah, it's impressive. I guess he's so pale,
Mhm.
but it was just really, really impressive. The curse, the vampire curse scene. It just, I'm trying to think of another. I like the ballroom scene, the masquerade ball at Collinwood. I think it's at Collinwood because it wasn't at Barnabas's house in the revival series. I don't remember. No, I don't think it was. When Julia's trying to redeem herself, you know, and make nice with Barnabas. He's totally ignoring her, and he's so aristocratic, you know. He's so aristocratic and so formal, like And he sees Victoria, and she's in Josette's gown, and that's a good scene. David's watching in the distance, and his face looks all worried, and that's another good scene. Yeah, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I think.
I like the scene where her serum does somewhat work,
Yeah,
and
a little bit. Yeah, yeah,
Professor Woodard in this,
yes,
and
yeah.
he's got the sheriff, and they're going over to Barnabas's house, and I'll show you, and they walk in the house, and Barnabas gets up out of bed, and Ben Cross is just like sweating. I don't know what they did to make him do that.
I
And,
don't know.
and he
Yeah.
walks down the steps, and he's standing in the sun, like
Oh,
coming through the window, and
yeah.
like,
I remember that scene.
and
Yeah.
it's like Ben Cross really sold me here because it's like it looks like he's either a just gonna stand there or stand there and fall. I was waiting for him to fall down the steps. Like I'm like he's gonna fall down the steps here. And they're gonna be charging
Yeah.
Dave Woodard with something
Hmm.
here. It might be murder
Yeah,
because
I know. I
it's
know. I
like
think. Yeah.
he was so like because he had trouble getting up. Like
Hmm.
he was selling like he's tired because again a lot of his energy is being drained because of the
Hmm.
certain working.
Yeah.
So he's walking down the steps, and when I love Ben Cross here because he's just standing there with. This is like the Collins pride coming out and on
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
Ben
Yeah.
Cross Barnabas for me. Like he's standing there like I'm showing you like see. What did you think of that scene?
That was unreal because you know again I think it was where Barnabas just compare it to the original series that hoping that this treatment's gonna work. He could go out in the daylight, and I know they had to have him. Well, Barnabas couldn't be in his coffin because he was in his actual old bedchamber,
Yeah,
and yeah, that was pretty intense. Like he's just like you say, he's standing there, he's holding it all in, and trying not to again fall over or pass out or whatever. And that was some really good acting. That was some really really good acting. And when little Sarah was dying too, that was a really good scene with Ben Cross and the little girl who played Sarah. That was really good too. Very sad, yeah, like in the original series. But Ben Cross, he really just he went all out, with Dark Shadows, with Barnabas, with that character, and he really made it his own. He really made Barnabas his own. I have to say.
another scene I like too is Ben Cross's Barnabas has sort of told Julia about the witch, and she's like,
Mm-hmm.
witch, like, and it's sort of somewhat a bit tongue in cheek with the original because the
Mm-hmm.
original Julia didn't believe Barnabas either. So that was
No,
my take
no.
here that Barbara
Mm-hmm.
Steele's Julia sort of wasn't believing him. And I like how
Mm-hmm.
they're sitting there. He's sitting in the chair in the old house, and she's talking to him, and then boom, Angelique goes to him. She's like, "What was that?" And Ben Cross,
Oh, Angelique.
cool, like so relaxed, like not shocked that this happened at all. It's like that, my dear doctor, is the witch. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yes, tell her, just like I just like take that, Julia. You were wrong, lady. I love that scene because it's so
Yeah.
he's like he's almost saying I told you so to her without saying.
Mm. Yeah, I know that was pretty cool. It was yeah, off the charts. I mean, because again, with they had the production value. They had, I guess, yeah, they had the money to do all these really cool cool special effects for 1991. Yeah, 'cause you wonder like it, what could have been, if this series hadn't been canceled, what would they have done with it? Because Angelique was possessing everybody.
She was body
uh,
hopping.
yeah, I know, right? It's like, well, in the original series, she's immortal. She doesn't have to possess anyone, but well, I'm assuming she's immortal because obviously. Um, but yeah, in the revival series, she's body hopping, possessing everyone. She's gonna cause trouble. Like, oh my god, what could have been? And then, I mean, the biggest difference, um, obviously, of them all, like Victoria knew what Barnabas was.
Yeah,
She found out. She put it all together. She, realized, oh, he's a vampire. And then when she came back from 1791, because she came back in her little, her dress, and um, and then Barnabas is like, oh no,
yeah.
she knows I'm a vampire.
I love, like, this scene is really interesting because it's great salesmanship by two a great actor and a great actress.
Mm-hmm.
Joanna Goings is Victoria Winter. She
Oh,
knows, and,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they're locking eyes with each other. And Ben Cross's Barnabas knows that she knows, and he has this look of not necessarily oh crap, but like now what do I do?
Yeah,
Do
because
I
he's in love with her. Yeah.
I love her, but do I need to kill her? It's you're not sure what he's thinking, and that to me is one of the most scariest things, like right there, because we have seen him just kill somebody. It's like, okay, he does love her, but would
Mm-hmm.
he? You're sort of wonder. That's
Yeah.
the thing. Like, I never felt. I've talked about this with in my Barnabas Collins video with
Mm-hmm.
I did with the Jonathan Fred Barnabas that
Mm-hmm.
I never felt that Barnabas was ever really going to kill Maggie. But,
No, I
but
don't
with
think
but,
he would have.
but
No.
with Ben Cross, I'm sort of wondering, like, by the end when he's looking at him, like dog, are you really gonna like? I'm sort of wondering, would he have?
I don't know. Because on the original series, I mean, Barnabas didn't think twice about killing anyone. Like, he always, like, okay, well, so and so knows I'm a vampire. They're going to have to die. Um, this Barnabas, Ben Cross's Barnabas, yeah, he killed Daphne Collins and he made her a vampire bride.
Yeah,
He had Carolyn under his control, and I guess eventually he, would have turned her into a vampire. Um, and he mostly, I think, he was just killing, for survival. Well, I think with Victoria, because she in the revival series, she is the reincarnation
Joseph.
of Josette, and I think, like I said this before in the original series, I mean, if Alexander Isles had stayed, they might have, made her Victoria the reincarnation of Josette. But I don't know if he. I mean, I don't think he would have. In my opinion, I don't think he would have killed Joanna Goings, Victoria for that reason. Again, because she's Josette. Because in the revival series, Angelique knew. I love it, said Anthony. So hers, Angelique. I mean, she knew that Victoria was going to be Josette in the future,
Yeah,
and from can, what I pieced together, that's why she set Victoria up
yeah,
to be to be hanged as a witch. In the original series, it was just random, because Angelique just saw an opportunity, boom, she took it. Well, I'm gonna, I'm gonna set up,
uh,
Victoria. It was so random, but in the revival series, I think it was calculated, because Angelique, is always obsessed with
they
Barnabas.
I think the one thing that's sort of somewhat taken from the original series with the revival bit
Mm-hmm.
most people think, well, Victoria Winters was never supposed to be Josette.
Mm-hmm.
Not, maybe not, but they're in the beginning episodes. Josette obviously helps save Victoria Winters.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a conversation between Victoria and Elizabeth, Joan Bennett and Alexander,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where she
Mm-hmm.
says about Josette came to me, and Elizabeth tells a story about how a woman in white, that was Josette,
Mm-hmm.
came to save her, that Josette would help Colin. She goes, well, maybe I'm related to Josette, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where Joan Bennett's character says, well, that would make you a Collins.
No,
That
well,
that can't that can't well, right. They haven't revealed that
yeah,
Josette
yeah,
was
yeah,
married, but
yeah.
at that time it's like, so you're sort of wondering, okay, they didn't capitalize on that in the
Mm-hmm.
original with, and I think that's sort of where somewhat of the revival is sort of taking some of that
Yeah,
and putting.
yeah.
Now with Angelique,
Mm-hmm.
I like Lizette Anthony's performance because
Me too.
there's a lot of big differences. Number one, Lizette Anthony has to deal with what she feels is now a woman who looks like her mistress, like the woman she's working for.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
instead of shooting Angelique, they stab
Mm.
Angelique, which is
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
different. I
Yeah.
I was sort of wondering when they went back. I'm thinking, I wonder if Barnabas has learned how to shoot. And in a sense, they answered this right away. Yes, Barnabas knows how to duel. He knows how to shoot a
Mm-hmm.
gun. Where
Yeah.
I've often joked that the original Barnabas, he needed more time at the gun range. But
Well, he was mild mannered before
right,
he
right. Well,
became a vampire.
I'm not so sure Jeremiah knew how to shoot either, but
No,
either,
no, probably not.
either or. But it's really interesting because they stab Angelique in the revival, and then, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it's a drawn out process. I think
Yeah.
the drawn out process with the original was Barnabas actually dying, because he's laying in bed, he's like, and
Yeah, the
Angelique,
change taking place.
right? It's
Yeah.
both do it differently, and both do it extremely well. Both the original.
Yeah, I always cry, especially when it crosses when he's well, I see him passing too. But it did just make me get all teary eyed. Yeah, I just that scene in Josette is holding him, and finally she's out of the fog. It takes a while after Angelique dies. Slowly, she's coming out of that. The spell is wearing off. The love spell, and it's really just so sad. But we know he's gonna come back.
Yeah.
We know Barnabas is gonna come back, and we all know what happens next. But yeah, I mean, what was I guess? Oh, the stabbing, like you said, the stabbing of Angelique, because yeah, her and Barnabas weren't married in the revival series. There
Right.
was never, a marriage between, I say, black male shotgun wedding and revival series, which was kind of odd, but yeah, that was odd, but good. It was an interesting change. But the stabbing, but again, Angelique, comes back in
Yeah.
spirit form and solid form. She always shows up at the courthouse like, oh, wait a minute, she's supposed to be dead. Yeah, the revival series is so fantastic, and like I said, it deserves more credit. Ben Cross deserves more credit because you really get into all 13 episodes. Like, oh, now what happens? What's gonna happen after this? And yeah, yeah, it's a shame it was canceled. It's a real shame. Trying to think what else. There's just so many differences between the two series. It's unbelievable.
I
Uh,
well,
yeah, yeah, a lot of differences between the two series. Yeah,
I think another thing
yeah.
is too, with the revival, they're sort of they're sort of relying on the familiar name characters a bit. There's not
Yeah.
there's not a
Yeah.
ton of new characters in there, where
Mm-hmm.
because the original series, that's what it was. I think that's something the original series did a lot better because it got a lot more time where they got
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
newer character. But
You're
here's what
right.
I'll say
Yeah.
with the revival is the one thing they did really well is though I don't there's I think that the one thing the revival did really well was I love the fact that you sort of see Jim Fay's stuttering go away. That he's sort of getting
Yeah.
cured sort of through Barnabas's DNA in a weird way,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah,
interesting
blood donation.
because you didn't sort of see that with Willie. Now you saw a change in
Mm.
Willie because Willie went from
No. Yeah.
career thief to handyman to he really I love how Willie Loomis, John Collins, Willie Loomis is like looking, the dogs are barking, and David asks him, "Well, will the dogs be barking?" And he looks at Barnabas, and John Collins like, "No, no, they won't be around."
Well, I think with Willie is that Barnabas just put the fear of God into it.
Oh,
Um, and with the Bible says with that Willie, he was kind of more like you know I don't know what the right word down his luck, just kind of like weird sleazy guy.
he
But
was related to
again,
Mrs. Johnson.
I know, right? That was a huge difference. But yeah, again, well, also with his Willie, Barnabas sort of rehabilitates him.
Yeah,
With both Willies, they more or less are resolved to their fate in a way. They really feel there's no way out, even though like you could go to his crypt during the day and solve the problem, resign from your job,
John
but they
Carlin.
don't.
Right,
Yeah,
John Carlin. The one thing I think about when I watch Jim Fays is John Carlin's line, like, "Well, when he's in the coffin, that's when you think that's when he's weak, but that's when he's the most powerful,
yeah,
because he has this control over you." And I kept thinking about
mm-hmm.
that with Jim Fay. Jim Fay is sort of he's sort of like tiptoeing around Barnabas a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
because that's a big difference too. The Maggie Evans kidnapping is a big difference too,
yeah, I know. There's no
where
no
I
kidnapping. Yeah,
I love because with John Carlin's Willie Loomis, once they hear the girl's dead, they hear Maggie's dead. For those who don't know, Maggie doesn't really die; they fake her death.
no, yeah,
But
yeah,
but
yeah. Poor
they,
Maggie.
I love John Carlin because he is so Jiminy Cricket. He's all but on Jonathan Frid's shoulder. We killed that girl, Barnabas. We killed that girl, and
Pain of death.
like up until this point, like Jonathan Frid's Barnabas Collins has been beating Willie Loomis on a daily basis.
Poor
And
Willie.
I'm waiting for him to like turn around and just choke the life out of him or just hit him, but he doesn't. And I'm thinking, wait a second. He knows he messed up here. He does.
Mm,
That's what I said. Like, this is where Jonathan's Frid's Barnabas is sort of saying, okay, I feel bad. He's
yeah.
right there. He's sort of feeling bad, and he
Mm-hmm.
knows Willie's right. Where I think there's a moment. I'm sort of wondering if that was going to be the moment going off the revival, where Joanna Goins was maybe going to call Ben Cross's Barnabas on being a vampire, not publicly but privately, where
Yeah.
where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, hey, I know what you are, and you
Mm-hmm.
did this and this and this, and I sort of wonder if there was going to be that confrontation. What do you think a season two would have been?
Oh, well, I heard Adrian Paul was going to, maybe I saw it on Twitter somewhere. Adrian Paul was going to be introduced as Quentin,
Mm.
the werewolf Quentin Collins. I think it would have been, dealing partly dealing with, Victoria knowing the truth. and then like her with like confronting Barnabas, and then dealing with that whole issue. Oh God, who I know they killed off uh, Joe Haskell. He probably would have come back as Peter Bradford. Jeff Clark, and they probably would have explored that love triangle. But there's a whole issue again. She knows that Barnabas is a vampire.
Yeah.
And Barnabas, he I know he stopped the treatments. He didn't want to be cured anymore. But it would have been so, oh God, it would have been so fantastic.
And
Just having all that drama, all those different intertwining plot lines.
yeah,
And yeah, it would have been cool though to see Adrian Paul as Quentin Collins. That would have been fantastic.
who
And yeah, yeah, I
who if you could have cast, like, in 1991 anybody as Quentin, who would you have cast?
oh gosh, I don't know. I'm trying to think like, oh God, all the actors from back then. Oh my God. Wow, that's a tough one. That's a tough one having to think back. Oh, well, Adrian Paul kind of does fit the bill as as Quentin Collins. I can't think of anyone else. That's a tough one. Oh God, who was so popular? There's so many different actors and well, television actors from way back when. Yeah, I have to think on that. I
Yeah.
have to think on that and try to come up with a list of other actors from way back then. Yeah,
I tend to ask weird questions,
that's okay.
but, but there's I do think there's a great difference between the two Barnabases, between Fred and Crosses, and I don't think Cross tried to be Fred, but I do think there's ways
No, no.
that he was sort of paying homage to him in a way. You could
Mm-hmm.
sort of there's certain scenes you could sort of see that in. Some of his mannerisms a bit are a bit Freddish. They're not completely.
Sort of. Yeah.
There's a line where I think, like, the Sarah one is one where
Mm-hmm.
I sort of see a bit of Fred, but he's not
Mm-hmm.
trying to. In a sense, he's not trying to be him.
No,
He's
no, no.
but and I think that's a great thing about it is
Mm.
I look at the revival. You're right. It is this. It's a all. It's a completely different version
Mm-hmm.
of what the '60s series was. It's a
Yeah,
different
yeah.
set of characters. Where
Mm-hmm.
I think where what I like about Angelique's body hopping is because they try another seance after Victoria goes back.
Mm-hmm.
That's another big difference is time
Mm-hmm.
isn't frozen in the '91 revival, where
No,
it's frozen
no.
in the '60s series. So when they
Mm-hmm.
attempt another seance, that's what
Mm-hmm.
brings Angelique's ghost completely to the present day.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember.
but
Yeah.
she needs a body, so she hops in Julia.
Mm-hmm.
Julia, the most shocking death, the death of Joe Haskell to me. Like,
Oh
Julia
yeah.
killing him, but
Mm-hmm.
how shocked were you that they did that?
I was pretty shocked when I watched it again. I was like, wow, that was a whole wow. I can only imagine they did it again was to bring him back as Peter Bradford. Because he was both the same. Well, yeah, he was Peter Bradford and Joe Haskell. Um, so yeah, I think that's why they killed him off.
Yeah,
Because like in the original series, that everybody has a look-alike, and not only in the original series, Joe Haskell was Nathan Forbes, but
yeah,
now he's Peter Bradford. Um, so yeah, it was shocking because he's the one that figures out that Barnabas is a vampire. Because in the original series, Burke Devlin was getting close, to that revelation. He was investigating, Barnabas, and then Burke Devlin disappears in South America. But to have Joe Haskell investigating and trying to figure out who Barnabas is, and he sees Barnabas and Carolyn at the crypt, making out, um, and then like, oh wow, Barnabas is a vampire, and then he gets killed by, I think, wasn't it Angelique's ghost that they killed him off? I can't remember. It was Angelique's ghost that killed him. But yeah, it was pretty shocking. Yeah, yeah,
It
to kill
yeah
poor Joe.
yeah. She's in Dr. Hoffman's body, and
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
stabs. I
yeah,
love
that's
how
right.
they get Maggie the medium to sort of try to unhex, just try to, you know.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
But then she goes into Maggie's body, and I found that really interesting because to me, I kept thinking about one thing with now Angelique and Maggie's body and her being a medium. Maggie had said that David's mother was a witch, and
Hmm.
I secretly think they to me they had planted the seed for the phoenix. Maybe she just saw fire and
Hmm.
assumed a witch,
Yeah.
which is interesting. I really, that's another thing I liked is Maggie being a medium, which was really interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool. That Maggie Evans, was a psychic medium, of course. I would think that. Yeah, yeah, it was interesting because I was trying to think back to the original series. Was there something about Maggie that, that would suggest that the original Maggie Evans may have been gifted somehow? I'll have to, have to think about that. So I know they also made Maggie Evans an artist, like Sam Evans was in the original series. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I like that. Yeah.
I like how Sam is in the revival. Sam's the owner of the Blue Whale.
I know, right?
Right?
Interesting choice.
Like, because the original Sam Loomis, or sorry, Sam Evans, so it's Sam Loomis. Sam Evans spent a lot of his time at the Blue Whale.
He did. Poor
With
Sam. Yeah, I know. He was always at the Blue Whale. You know, getting a drink or two, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, the revival. It's kind of like it kind of is also like a parallel time version of the original Dark Shadows in a way. In a way, it really is. Yeah, yeah. But I always watch the revival series every Halloween, so
That's
I'll
cool.
definitely be doing it. Yeah, I do with the lights off. I do. Yeah, yeah, I don't. I watched it a couple times, in a month, just to see, just to go down memory lane. Absolutely love it. Yeah, like I said, I think it was. I don't think it was the Dark Shadows document. Was it Master of Dark Shadows? About Dan Curtis and about the show. Dan Cross is on towards the end, and they interviewed him, and again he was so gracious, so positive about his experience playing Barnabas Collins and how much he loved and enjoyed playing the role. I really like, oh my god, that's so sweet. I'm like, oh, that he loved playing Barnabas Collins,
I think I think that's the thing. Like, both actors embrace the role.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
one thing I want to see when they do the sequel series is
Oh, is that still a thing, or what happened with
that I
that
know of.
show?
Yeah, that I know of. They're still shopping it around. Last time I heard,
Really?
but
Wow.
I hope whoever they get to play Barnabas embraces the role.
Oh.
But is there anything you want to add before we go?
Well, I didn't know. I wasn't sure if they were actually going to have Barnabas on the sequel series. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I would love to see. Wow, I'm looking forward to that. Um, well, I do have a few hotels, quite a few movies. Um, I there are just one or two things I recommend if um Ben Cross movies. The Citadel from 1983. That I think is still on YouTube. It's a mini series. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea from 2003. And one of his last movies, Last Letter from Your Lover from 2021. That was on Netflix. And he's all the way towards the end of the movie. So yeah, I highly recommend checking out his movies. To see, if you like him on Dark Shadows, it's Barnabas. He did a whole bunch of other movies, obviously,
Yeah,
before he played Barnabas. But yeah, I'm glad I was able to come on here
absolutely.
and talk about. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to come back
Sure.
um, anytime. Maybe talk about, since I talked about this on Twitter, the costumes from the 1795 storyline on Dark Shadows. I talk about that a lot. Um, I did historical reenacting, well, actually living history, so I'm very knowledgeable about all things historical costumes. So yeah,
We'll set up.
yeah.
I have a lot of podcasts coming up, but we will set a date. It'll probably be in September because I have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
That's all
is.
good.
It
Yeah,
is.
just huh?
Sure.
Yeah, just
I
let me know. Yeah,
right. We follow each other on Twitter, so I'll message you.
yeah,
But
definitely message me. Yeah, about that. I'd love to chat about that. And yeah, again, thank you so much. Thank you so
no,
much for
anytime.
bringing me on here. Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
this channel's for, is to bring Dark Shadows fans together and on and talk about Dark Shadows.
What could be better than to talk about Dark
That's
Shadows?
it. You know?
But yeah, I definitely, yeah, like I said, Ben Cross deserves more credit as Barnabas Collins. He really does. He was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful in the role. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Like, I was talking about this to a friend of mine. I said, look, none of the movies are canon to either series.
No,
And
no,
but when I look at the revival, it's not the original, but it doesn't
no.
try to be the original from the actors, and that's a good thing. If you're going to have a reboot, then be definite.
Mm,
And that's an important
mm.
thing to me, and I know to you too. But
Yeah, yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on, Lisa, and giving me your
You're
time.
welcome.
I
Well,
really,
thank you.
really, really appreciate it,
Oh, it's no
and
problem at
I had
all.
a blast.
Thank
For
you. I
Lisa,
had fun too.
for Lisa Manfield, I'm Joel Saints. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.